inside this cavity. So I'll take you in here. So big it won't pinpoint. That's a really good sign. You can hear that. There we are. The stone's really interesting. Hope you can see, but this is the seam in between the two, so you hear that's pretty hollow underneath. And then so what we want to do is take a metal detector and see what happens. So I'm getting hit down through a specific area. And as you can see, the whole crack's hot. So again, with the detector hits, where this is likely to be really, really, really good. Cross our fingers, right? Wow. Wow. Hello, my name is Robert KRYDER, and I'd like to invite you to join me on an adventure amongst the canyons and mesas of the high desert of New Mexico, on a quest to decipher ancient maps and coded script in an effort to locate and recover the 77 packloads of treasure they serve to conceal. This is not just a hunt for material wealth, but as well for the wealth of the story and great historical implications it will bring to light. These lands are steeped with legends and lore of unworldly and enchanted histories, cultures and beasts, this valley in particular being off limits to the natives for thousands of years. Regarded as home of who they call the Little People, the place they call Red Mesa, and what is known as the Devil's Burial Ground. During the oldest period inferred by the maps from 1590 to 1650, Aztec treasures of gold and gems were being moved north en masse from Mexico into this area by both natives and their Jesuit and Spanish conquerors. And during the later period between 1750 and 1800, gold and silver from the mines of Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico were being hauled and stashed in secret depository locations hidden in these same remote desert canyons. Let me be your guide as we locate and decipher secret coded script left behind by very clever peoples of the past, and put what we find to test with excavation and recovery. This is the ongoing story of the location and recovery of one of these cache sites. So join me for the glory, the pain, the confusion, and the epiphanies that will hopefully lead to a treasure and historic doctrine-shattering discovery. Our adventure begins with a map stone, a large slab of bedrock, artificially flattened, and then inscribed in at least two different periods with secret coded script. The secret codes used in the concealment of caches of wealth are often complicated and confusing, some resulting in hundreds of years of attempted decipher with no luck. The codes on this stone are quite complex, using both mirror image and inversion or reflection within the symbolism hides the true meaning from the casual observer. One of the first things to do is to establish a timeline, and that can be done by finding the north-south marker of each of the inscribed maps. In this case, we have two maps to choose from, both from a different time frame. The magnetic field of the Earth changes over time, and thus a compass needle does not always point to the same location. So checking historically the declination of the magnetic field against the north-south markers on the rock gives us possible date windows. This, in turn, helps us decipher the code by knowing which time frame the code would have been made in. It's interesting to note that each man did code based on his own creativity and interpretation, but they did so using a format that others like them could over time decipher. To start with, we'll be concentrating on the older script, designated through declination to be around 1590 to perhaps as late as 1650. Noting in the old script at the top, there's a backwards end with an extended bar, and another form, and in between the two it looks like a degree symbol. And that is indeed what that stands for. It stands for you take north as a degree or 0 degrees. Now, being this is a backwards end, it means it's a mirror image. It means to flip it horizontally, not vertically, but horizontally as if viewed in a mirror. Doing so, we note that the form up to the right, it looks like a set of bird wings. Now, understanding that the old-time profile maps for any topography or a monument or anything were always viewed looking east, but being this is a mirror, as designated by the N, we look at it as if facing west, with the degree symbol acting also as a measure of 100. And when flipped, the symbol form makes a 3. So the first instruction would be to go 300 varas north and to look for that form. The second set of instructions dictate what to do when you have found the form from the first set of instructions. If we look closely in the lower glyph of the horse, a line drawn from its eye across the tip of its ear, and as well on the A, which is the symbol for go to, both align with the existing direction exactly. The lower instructions are in two forms, with the one on the left and the one on the right both having multiple meanings. The form on the left is in an L or a mason's mark, meaning a mason has done the work. It's also an inverted 7 since we're supposed to be viewing this as if we're looking out from a mirror. On top of the L form, you'll notice as marked in red, is a small downward facing arrow. This indicates our point of travel once we've found our spot to start from. In this case, we travel forward and then to the left and hook back to the left again. The symbols on the right, in the form of a horse's head, also dictate the same movement, but with more detail. And finally, this line leads us to the form we're to look for, where the actual cache is buried. In this case, it's an art, as shown here in green. With the final line set making the profile of a head looking downward, literally meaning look beneath. In this case, look beneath the arch. The horse head symbol also contains other information, like the distance to travel in the number 5, and as well each travel increment as varas over an obstacle. The most important thing is the half of a heart, with its imposed reflection being invisible. This means to read this lower map as a reflection would be in a pond or an inverse image flipped vertically, making everything we find at the subject location to be in reverse. Now that we have a full list of instructions, we can follow these with the intention of finding the form as declared in instruction number 1. And doing so leads us to exactly what we were looking for. A rock outcrop in the shape of a turtle that's upper edge meets the requirements for our desired form, with an inscription on top written in code regarding both gold and the royal or sacred blood. Metal detecting at this location revealed a unique metallic object. Called a habaki, it's a piece off a short sword or dagger, and it's made of an alloy called shibuchi, a combination of silver and copper. In this case, very high silver content means it's a very fine piece. The only similar artifact we could find with the like design was actually off Blackbeard's ship. Other artifacts were found over time by the landowner, like these iron handmade hand-wrought pieces, one being a large type of latch, and all of very early manufacture. One of these also includes a small cannonball from a hip cannon. Moving on from the outcrop, 5 varas as instructed, we reach our final location and begin the last instructions as dictated on the map. With the form superimposed here on the ground, you can see exactly how this works, and the arch feature they want us to dig beneath. Okay, so this is the first day to attempt a little mini excavation to test what is likely to be inside this cavity. I'll take you in here. So, and the point being is we get hits in the floor of this. It's about 12 feet back there at least. So we get hits in the floor of this on either side, mainly iron, but we're also getting returns silver and higher, so it'd be lead at least. So we're about to do a short pull out of this and see what occurs from it. And there's no telling what's under here. This had been obviously buried and it's sloughed and drained. So all that should be solid rock underneath, but we get echo returns, detector echo returns all across this. And then I actually can pretty consistently get a really high echo return under this rock, and then under this rock is this hole. And it shouldn't be like that. There shouldn't be anywhere for that material to go. So, like I said, I'm getting real high returns for what we call warbles. What I call warbles is when it goes da, 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 da. And these computerized machines like this Mine Lab don't normally do that. So analog machines and early analog digital, you could set them down and they would do that even with their ground balance on. And what that is reflections. Too much reflections. You're sending back a feedback, like a phase feedback loop. The same thing as when a microphone and a speaker, and you begin to hear the speakers through the microphone, you get feedback. Well, that's what we're getting. And so the machine is scaling and turning down, scaling and turning down, so it's bouncing. And we get that along this entire deal. So that usually means something well beyond the rated depth for detector, but bigger than what they rate detectors for. So if you can get that. So, okay, we're going to get after the first little bit of this and see what we can find. By pulling out of just a few of these top rocks, make sure not to clear anything. Let's get the ones I can see. See, I already have more depth in here than we should, and it's real soft. I just flipped that rock out of there real easy. So we do is we save everything, and I would be noting the positions of these, but in this situation it's not really going to do much. So I don't know if you heard that or not, but it sounds completely hollow down there. So what I expect to find is a rock covering and a hole, and then you have whatever you have. This would normally be a tool cache. As close as this is to the main inscription, yeah, it should be a tool cache, I would think, but there's no telling what they put with it. Also, they like to include value enough to do a recovery on the main caches, but there's no telling. So this could be part of the main cache, or the main cache. But so far, what we saw on the map would show the main cache is about 30 burrow loads. Oh, that's a heck of a rock. Now these rocks did not come from in here. That's completely obvious. Slide this bad boy out. Okay, now look at this. We got rat tracks on here a little bit. But look at this rock. That didn't come from the ceiling in there. That's not what the ceiling looks like in there at all. The ceiling in there is completely smooth. As a matter of fact, the sandstone, a homogeneous piece of sandstone like this, doesn't break off in layers like this. This is tossed in there. And see what I mean by rock plates? So you can see how thin that is. So these look just like cover stones to me. That's a good sign. Listen to this. What we're going to do is we're going to slide out a couple of these, and then we're going to take the detector and take another quick pick. See. There's another one. There's another one. You can hear it's still hollow under it. So they got layers of that. Yeah. Alright, let me take a detector just for grins. So we'll see what it does in there. Got ground balance it out here. Well, the thing about rats, though, when they start to try to take over somewhere, they want to bring in a lot of cactus. So crawling around here is just nothing but getting nature's vaccination all day. Okay, let me see if we're hot. Okay. So big it won't pinpoint. That's a really good sign. So the hit did not really increase when we pulled out those couple of cover plates. It's really identical. So what that tells us is this isn't shallow. This is going to be down here a ways. But obviously the this is artificial. This shouldn't be here. That should be bedrock down there. Should not be these flat cover plates in there. Upon removal, it should not have more dirt and then hit another cover plate and sound hollow again. With the detector hits, where this is liable to be really, really, really good. Cross our fingers, right? Wow. Wow. Okay, so listen to this. This is one flat, totally flat cover stone. Oh my goodness. It's already getting hard there again. So it's hard on each side and it's very soft in the middle. So what we're doing now is clean the floor out. And it's basically a big flat slab in there that I haven't cleaned off yet, that I will be cleaning off. And then so all the material that was scraped off that goes in one pile on top of the grass there. Those are the cover stones that we pulled out so far. And then I'll be digging out a section of the front of it here that you can see And what we've already noticed is, talked about digging out a certain amount of ground here, so I would have room to pull my material back. And what has happened is, as I dug this, it appears like someone else has already done this. Because outside is natural clays, and it's super difficult to dig in anything at the top here. It's real hard on the sides. As soon as you get to a line, it becomes soft. Just sink a shovel all the way to about here, this side, and you have the same thing, hard again, natural clays. And then as I get over here, I'm running into these hollow spots where there's just no dirt underneath the backside of this whole thing. So that's really interesting. So don't know what it all means yet. It means it's not natural. Something's up. So yeah. So I just noticed got a little visitor here. What are you doing, buddy? He's a good kitty. From nowhere. You're a white cat. What do you think of that? Is that an omen? So now we've got a little first level platform area. Didn't see anything cultural in it, but it was obviously hard on the sides. And animals had tunneled up to the edge of it, I guess, making all these hollows just to this point. So this is pretty considerable. And then our stone floor is right there. You can see it's partially scraped off. I'm trying not to hit the rock hard. But it definitely doesn't match this rock or the ceiling. It's got a lot of packed tight sedimentary layers, and this is all homogeneous sandstone. So it definitely does not go here at all. But so now we're going to pull this back and expose that whole laid in rock there. It's like looking at a stone floor. It's totally hollow. If you can hear that. You'll notice it's all completely flat. The roof in here isn't flat. But what they'd call a patio. So, but generally a patio is a flat stone lined surface like this used for crushing ore. But same thing. Because they've set floor stones in here and put them all together to form a completely flat stone covering. Nature just doesn't usually do things quite right. So what we're going to do is I'm going to uncover a section of it here. So far we've not found anything that's cultural in it. Now they got clay packed on top of it. That's pretty obvious. This lower section here has a whole layer poured in clay on it. So I'm not going to dig that clay out yet. Clean all that off and see what it looks like first. If I see any cultural items, I'll probably cease the actual scratching into this and do a little finer look, screen what's there, and see if there's more or anything fits before I proceed too much farther. But you can, pretty amazing. You know, this is at least 6 foot, 7. It's at least 7 because my arm to the edge. So you can hear it's one flat section of stone, probably made up of a bunch of stones, but they're laid in beautiful, and it's hollow. How cool is that? That is one flat plate of stone, or it's stones laden section, perfectly flat and perfectly together. And you can hear
under it. It's hollow. All the way back. And it's not on rock. This isn't bedrock. That's a artificial stone covering here. And it's pretty spectacular. It's all of about 7 feet so far that I can see. And it's most likely made up of a bunch of different plates all laid in, just like laying in a rock floor. Matter of fact, it's beautiful. It's just, if it's a rock floor, it's gorgeous. Now it's completely flat, both directions, wide and length. And the ceiling in here definitely isn't flat whatsoever. So this is actually really amazing. This is cool. See the ceiling? That's not hollow. Floor, ceiling, floor. It's actually huge. It's really big. Massive. It's all of, oh, there's an edge right there. Hey, baby. All right. Okay, that's a good sign. See, it's just powder. But down here, right in front, we have hard clay. And it looks like it's been put in here, poured in here, or placed and tamped. Get the dirt off of this, and then we're going to broom this out. Try to broom it out, and see what we've got. I'm going to broom off this clay too. We've already noticed it's chunks of material put in and tamped. Like there's like this what I'm looking at right in front of me here. I'll show you. This is a feature. So this looks like a kind of a mud flow or something. That's what it is. They use wet clay, and this is the form of it. And the soft dirt just comes right off around wherever it's not. So it just comes right off of it because it's considerably harder. And that's put right on top of our door plates there, or our cover stones. So I'll be sweeping that off a little bit and documenting that clay pour and the transition out to the front, and then I'll start sweeping off this fake floor. So we're about to lose daylight here, and before we get too much farther, you see I've got the area cleared here. So, and I cleaned from the second load, and then so what I was showing you before was this dissimilar material here. So the sides are very soft and crumbly, and then you come into a very hard poured clay surface, and then behind that you have your rock layer, and that which goes all the way back up here. And so what I intend to do now is we'll kind of document that mud pour. And so get excavation tools and things out. And I think I've got a brush in here somewhere. Okay, so let's throw these down and just start a little bit here. And we'll kind of just clear, not try to disturb it too much. But what's on top, it's really soft, and then there's a definite difference to the material when you hit it. So you can see here, this is actually the surface of the mud pour here. There could be some small marking in it, but you get the overall layout. And then this is the transition to the stone here. And see, this stone's all angular and jagged, but what's above us is a homogeneous type of sandstone. It doesn't do that. This is an old upper surface. What I'm looking to see here, I want to see if there's any kind of cracks in how this is laid in. Of course, there's very little headroom, so And this is, like I said, we're about to lose daylight. So really all I'm doing is documenting this little transition here between the clay pour. And so here's an original edge, actually, and you can even see how rounded it is there, and where I broke a chunk out, where my hose hit it. But this is virgin edge here. So that's the edge of the mud pour, and you can see the kind of rolls to it. You can kind of tell it was, you know, a thick liquid, like a oatmeal or whatever when it was put in. So definitely not a natural thing being where we are. And the stone's really interesting. Looking to see what kind of gaps, if any, there are. And see how angular and jagged all this is. This definitely did not come, but it's eroded. It's not virgin or fresh. It's all rounded. So this is a surface piece of rock from somewhere else. Flat plates. So that's why they sound hollow. Okay, so the last thing to do here is, once we've got everything clean and swept in here a little bit, is to do a quick detector cover. Make sure we didn't drag out anything or our target's still in existence. And so I'm up in here now. I got about up in here to about my knees. And this little low spot here is cover plates, and we have two separate ones. That's one plate, and then that's another plate. And in between the two, they fit really tight. Hope you can see, but this is the seam in between the two. So you hear that's pretty hollow underneath. And so what we want to do is take a metal detector and see what happens. So I'm getting hit down through a specific area. And as you can see, the whole crack's hot. That means that I'm sending a signal down through this crack to something under this plate. And pretty cool little spot. This rock that we're under is on dirt. It's not on bedrock, so somebody put it here. This dirt is probably washed out in the hundreds of years since it was put here. And that's what caused probably this to slough and wash into where I could find it. Obviously the dirt, from what we could see, was at a level originally where it wouldn't have shown up. So, but that's an outstanding sign. It doesn't get any better than this. And we're scaling for high-end metal, which is really cool. So that's pretty incredible. Wow. And as a matter of fact, we'll probably conclude with that. I'll get this all cleaned up. I got a little bit of material to scrape out of there, and then just to leave it cleaned. I don't know when I'll be able to come back out. So, but yeah. So I guess what we'll do now is we'll wrap it up and prep it all for next time. Then I'll go back through this data. I still have a lot of mapping and numbers work over this entire alignment to check out and decipher. Shouldn't be too difficult. Most of the stuff I've already found, some of the lines and maybe one of the corner to a template. And so once we get the template corner figured out, then we pretty well got the whole area, and we can diagnose it for where the caches are, in spite of any of the monuments if they're missing or anything like that. So, but this one looks outstanding, and so far, sometimes when you dig them, they just peter and you go, nah, it can't be. And they don't get better as you dig. This is certainly getting better as we excavate. So, okay, cool. Until part 3, right? It drives me nuts. You know, I would just stay out here digging if I didn't have to wrap up and go. You'd have to airdrop me food. But anyway, cool. See you next time.